On the air right now, Doug Heller is with the Coalition to Protect Auto No Fault in Michigan, which has done a study recently, and you may have seen a few headlines on this. Working class Michiganders with perfect driving records paying hundreds more for auto insurance. And Doug joins us now to talk about that. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Richard. Good
Thanks for the time today. We appreciate that. This is a study that you conducted. What did you do?
Well, we did what is like a secret shopper test. We went to 5 major insurers and about 8 communities around Michigan, and we went online and we asked for quotes for a good driver who always drove the same Ford Fusion everywhere she went, and we tested the prices that were given to her if the only things we ever changed were the job she had, job she had, her education level, and whether or not she owned or rented her home. Everything else was exactly the same, including, most importantly, the fact that she never had an accident, never filed a claim, and had never received a ticket. And what we saw across the state was that she would pay hundreds of dollars, and in some of the biggest cities, as much as $1,000 more, just because her job title was something like a factory worker instead of an investment banker or a lawyer, and she didn't have a college degree and rented her home instead of owning her home. I did some quick testing in Battle Creek this morning, and you see the same thing. One company charged $220 more because she was out of work than if she had been a lawyer. But if she's a good driver, if you have folks who are trying to keep themselves in line with the law that requires all of us to buy auto insurance, and you never cause accidents, you bring no risk to the road, why should you be paying more for the required auto insurance? And it's a problem that's faced throughout the state, and it's one of the reasons that Michigan has one of the highest levels of uninsured motorists in the country.
So why is this happening, if you've even been able to draw a conclusion yet?
Well, I think one of the reasons it happens is because insurance companies can get away with it. There is simply, we make these laws that require all of the customers of the state, all of the drivers of the state, to buy a product from these companies, but we don't spend too much time making sure they price us fairly, and effectively they're allowed to get away with it. The companies like to charge less to people who they think are going to buy lots more insurance, because if you're a lawyer who owns a house, maybe you're going to also buy life insurance, and maybe you're going to buy home insurance from them, and so they just think, hey, let's give them a deal. But if you're working at a factory and you've got or you rent your house, maybe you only have a high school diploma, the insurance companies look at you and say, well, you're not going to buy a lot of product from us, so why should we offer you a deal? What's happened, sadly, is the auto insurance companies in Michigan have been allowed to slice and dice and price us in such a way that hardworking but lower income Michiganders pay a lot more for the same exact product than some of their more well-heeled peers around the state. And when you have to buy the product, it's just not fair to be that way.
We've talked with a couple of other entities of late who call into question the viability of the no-fault system, and some even point to this problem to which you refer, the increasing overall premiums, as evidence that the no-fault system needs to be changed. What's the feeling of the Coalition to Protect Auto No Fault about that? Well,
the feeling is that Michigan has a strong legacy of protecting people who are injured in accidents, and that's a good thing. However, the state doesn't have as strong a legacy of protecting the consumers on the paying side for auto insurance. When we're buying the product, there's not that kind of oversight. And when you basically hand over to an industry the requirement that everybody has to buy your product, you just have to do a better job of ensuring that the companies aren't gouging us, aren't taking advantage of us on that. It does cost a lot to buy auto insurance in Michigan, but one of the reasons that that's the case is when the companies price people who are least able to afford it, they price them out of the market because of these things like their job title or whether or not they've got a master's degree. You end up having more uninsured motorists. Now, that hurts everybody because we all have to pay higher uninsured motorist premiums, and it also means that a lot of these good drivers who, for no fault of their own, excuse the pun, are pulled out of the market, and that means that we're reducing the pool. An insurance pool works when we have more people in it, and especially when we have more good drivers in it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you price a good percentage of these drivers out of the market because you don't like their job title or you don't like the fact that they rent their home, that's a problem. I mean, look, Battle Creek, it's almost half the residents of Battle Creek are renting homes, and as a result of it, they get punished simply for that when they go to pay for their auto insurance.
I've noticed, too, that there seems to be a approach now with auto insurers to bait you in with a low rate, and then they just raise it every 6 months. Did your research uncover that at all?
Well, we haven't looked at over time, but one of the things that we've pointed to in other studies over the years is that different states approach auto insurance oversight differently. And in Michigan, insurance companies are allowed to basically file their rates with the government. You have to let them know what they're going to charge you, but there's no oversight, there's no approval process. Other states, insurance companies can't just change your rates willy-nilly. They have to prove up the fact that these rates are reasonable and fair. And again, we're not talking about buying flowers for your spouse here. We're talking about buying a product the state requires, and that's why it's so important that the regulators that we put in place, the government officials that we hire to look after us, are actually doing the job. And that's going to take some courage from our regulators, but also lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the insurance industry spends loads and loads of money at the state capitol to make sure that they're allowed to continue to charge us high rates, and we need some protection. Otherwise, we're going to stay in the cycle of more uninsured motorists and higher premiums for all of us.
I know you got to go, but I'll just mention in tandem with what you've just said, I brought this issue up with lawmakers here, mostly House representatives who cover this area, and in doing so, I can't say that I've noticed that they're that fired up about this. Have you undertaken any initiatives to try and change that?
Well, I think the first thing that we want to do is we want to explain to people how this system works. I think everybody just hears high auto insurance rates, and we know that that's lousy, and that stinks when you're trying to make your monthly budget. But what they didn't, I don't think people have really appreciated until this point, as we're trying to tell this story, is that it has a lot to do with your job title and whether or not you own or rent your home and your education level. And I think that people realize how unfair the pricing is. Or for that matter, if your credit score isn't pristine, your auto insurance premiums go up. And I think people recognize times can be tough for folks. We can have financial problems, but that doesn't make us worse drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And as more and more people say, hey, we'll pay the insurance premiums if you base it on how we drive, not who we are. I think lawmakers their ears will perk up because people aren't happy when they realize that they're being cheated.
All right. Well, we appreciate the time. Is there a website where folks can look at this further if they want to?
Yeah, the coalition has their protectnofault.org website, and you can learn more about it and hopefully speak your voice, because otherwise the insurance companies and the lawmakers will sit back and collect the money.
All right. Protectnofault.org, you said.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Doug Heller with the Coalition to Protect No Fault in Michigan with that report. Thank you very much.